I realized it's so much easier to get a promotion in real estate with purchasing another real estate deal. That kind of made me realize that I can do so much more in real estate, but I just didn't see how I can take that next step.
Welcome back for another episode, Passive Investors. We're going on a passive income adventure today with Katrina and Pete Turner. I will let them introduce themselves as always. I am really excited to hear their story because Katrina and I connected, I guess it was a couple of years ago now, and she was just getting started on this journey. So when I reached out to basically see where everybody was on their journey, she had some really great progress to report. So I'm excited to hear her update and hear her tell us all about how they have left the beaten path and they are now firmly on the path of being entrepreneurs and investors. So thank you for coming to the show. Would love to have you take a couple of minutes and introduce yourselves and tell us basically your story of who you are and why you're here.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emma. Yes, we did connect maybe 3 years ago. And when I talked to you, your journey in real estate really inspired me. I was still working in corporate office. I couldn't even imagine looking at apartment complexes. We did have a few properties under our belt already. We weren't even married with Peter back then. So a lot of things have changed. And now we are real estate syndicators in a similar field as you are, which is very exciting. And our paths have crossed again.
It's awesome.
So I love the story where you took action. I talk to a lot of people and I love talking to people in this business. It's basically my favorite part of what we do is all of the networking and hearing everybody's stories. But I especially love hearing the stories of people who are like, I don't know what to do. And then I hear later, we took action. And whether or not it was anything I said, I just love the fact that people get the information in from YouTube and podcasts and conferences and all their RIA meetings, anywhere they can get it. And then they come back and they take that information and they actually do something with it. So what do you think sets you apart? And what was it that spurred you to say, we're doing this, just rather than learning about it and then never taking action? I would love to hear that progression.
Yeah. So I can take this one on. So maybe I should start with the fact that I'm an immigrant. So I'm originally from Russia and I came here to pursue American dream. So I always knew that I want to have a better future for myself that I could have back at home. Unfortunately, I had to leave my family behind there, but I have a new family right here and right over here as well. We're talking Bella, warming my lap. So I moved here when I was 18 years old and I went to college and bought my first condo. I was an investment property in Boston and I bought it with the mindset that it's going to be an investment property when I was 21 years old. So that was always my dream, to own real estate. I did not know how to grow the portfolio at that point. I just knew that I wanted to start somewhere. And I did, as you said, I did take action and I saved and I bought the condo, which I further, after I rented it out, it was profitable somewhat. It was in Boston, so it was really small, but that's all I could afford at that point. And then I decided to I was working in corporate at that point and I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I thought that would be a safer path for me, so I finished my bachelor's degree. I got my master's in finance afterwards. And I continued to grow my real estate portfolio as I was working in corporate. And at some point in my life, I realized that it's really hard to do both at the same time. And as much as I wanted to grow the corporate ladder, there was so much politics involved in corporate and so much cutthroat. And was so hard to get a promotion. And I realized it's so much easier to get a promotion in real estate with purchasing another real estate deal. That kind of made me realize that I can do so much more in real estate, but I just didn't see how I can take that next step at that point.
I have never heard it said like that before. I guess I should have. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to wait for somebody to award you a promotion. You just go get one by expanding your business, taking on more responsibilities, expanding your product line, or buying another property, because each property is like its own little business. I love that. It's very different than where we were coming from. My husband was like, I don't want a promotion. I just want to do this. But I love that terminology and how you basically just gave yourself your own promotion and you can give yourself as many as you want.
Emma, I'd like to take this opportunity to kind of catch up on my own story during this time we hadn't yet met.
Yeah.
and tell you a little bit about that after. But hi, I'm Pete Turner. I was a career military officer. I served. I'm not a quitter. I served over 20 years. I served 30 years in the Army, both in the reserves and some active duty. And I always had a passion for real estate. And many years ago, when I was 20 something, I really was looking for our first home in my first marriage. And I wanted a duplex. And it was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And to find anything out about landlord tenant, you had to get a book. My wife at the time and I got the book, the Landlord Tenant Handbook. When I looked at it, I saw opportunity. When she looked at it, she saw negativity. Like, we're going to lose, we have to pay. So I never made it way back then, never bought that duplex, bought a single family. Many years later, and you can't really pick what day your closing is or exactly what day you're going to retire from the military. But it ended up coming together. I had a very contentious deal, my first multifamily property. There's 4 townhouses in Rhode Island. And the buyer, I never met them. They stepped away from the deal. They came back to the deal. They put in bad tenants. There was all kinds of interesting tenants there, let's just say. Yeah. And the closing ended up coming together. It was on the same day I retired from the military. And I'll tell you, at that time, I was part-time in the military. And this one deal, even though it wasn't a perfect deal, this one deal replaced my National Guard income. And I was hooked. I was hooked on real estate. And I started buying some more. And I wanted to improve. And I joined a local RIA group. And that's where the next part of the story comes in.
I have found that not all RIA groups around the country are very good, because I didn't realize at the time when we first moved to Salt Lake City that the RIAs here are outstanding. And so I was like, everybody should join a RIA. You're going to learn so much, a great networking, so many people doing what you want to be doing and follow. And I would recommend it. And people say, oh, we joined our RIA. It was terrible. So depending on what part of the country you're on, the quality definitely varies. But I do hear that the Boston RIA is actually pretty good. And one of my partners runs the RIA for the Providence, not far from you. And so that one's definitely very good. I will plug that one. And he's right there near you. So you found that your RIA was actually pretty beneficial to you, which I definitely found. And I'm not sure how much of that built into your success. And if it hadn't been any good, do you feel like that would have impacted your progress?
Yeah, we actually found the best deal in real estate at that.
Okay.
So we went to a special class about flipping houses and getting good deals, and I think topic might have been wholesaling, and we both ended up being there at the same time for different reasons. And at the end of the event, we actually met and connected, and it took a while, but that's where we met. And that was at the Rhode Island Real Estate Group. So right now, your partner Frank actually leads that. We know Frank well.
Yeah.
And we really enjoy that group. We've been to the Boston one. I've been to Newton a couple times. That's some great networking, a lot more syndicators there. But yeah, that's where we met. That's the best deal we got at the RIA.
Exactly. I mean, that is awesome. I'll share a quick story from one of my other partners. I know he doesn't mind me sharing it because he's talked about it publicly before, but he went through a divorce and was really struggling to get back into the dating scene. And his wife was, she was supportive of the real estate, but she wasn't really that into it. It wasn't a factor in the divorce, but afterwards she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to sell my rental properties so you can buy my interest. And I just don't want to do this anymore. And so he was really struggling because everybody that he met didn't really understand the lifestyle. And when you have taken an alternative path, it's definitely more difficult for you to find somebody who's like-minded. And so I love that you met at this event, because that's exactly what he did. When he was working with his coach, he was like, I'm struggling to find somebody who really connects with. And he said, well, just go start what you want. Go start your own group. And so it was a specific, very niched group for entrepreneurs who fit a really small definition. And he eventually did meet the woman that he's married to today. And she's a real estate investor, and they're basically starting their syndication business together. And it's been really fantastic to watch, because we've known them through this whole thing. And it's a real testament to me that you create what you want in your life, because he went out and he created it and he found it. And the same thing with you. I don't think that you showed up at that meeting expecting to find a spouse. His group was specifically so he could be dating and find like-minded people to date. But you had that common interest, and now you have really discovered one another. Even though you might be off of the mainstream path, you have this shared interest. And it's a huge part of your life. If you don't have a supportive spouse, you would at least need to have a neutral spouse, because this is very difficult, and the mindset can be the biggest part of it. And so if someone is tearing you down and telling you that you can't do this, and who's super scared and risky, I mean, Pete, you told the story best with your ex-wife. She's like, I don't want to do this. And you're like, okay, this is a big deal. we really need to be on the same page. So I think it's beautiful that you were able to meet and create the kind of relationship that you can pursue your passions and your dreams and both be on the same page there.
Absolutely. It helps so much. It's tremendous.
Yeah, we were actually on Frank's podcast, and he asked us, or someone in the group asked us about, is there a secret to success when you're in a partnership and also doing the business together? And I think what you said hit the nail on the head. It does support you if both are thinking the same directions. We set goals together. I think it brings us together, and my strengths hopefully complement yours, and yours definitely complement mine. And in business, we stay in our own lanes, right? So I do certain things that I do bookkeeping for us and social media. And Pete is more of a strategy person. He likes numbers. He likes searching for deals. He likes networking. So everyone has to have their own thing that contributes to the whole. So I'm so glad I manifested this wonderful man in my life.
And I love that you use that word manifest. Now, and I have to say, as an aside, I haven't even been on Frank's podcast yet. I'm still working my way up that ladder.
It was actually a beginner RIA group, not the actual podcast.
Okay. Oh, I fell along.
We can cut that out.
Maybe we should put in a good word for one another so we can get booked over there.
If we say his name again, he's going to have to pay us all. So.
But seriously, get your virtual assistant from realagenthelper.com. There you go. So I'll leave that part in because.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So anyway, I really like what you said, Emma. I really liked what you said when you were opening up is about taking action. Taking action is critical. I took action back then on that first townhouse, and I read every book. I think I was probably a member of the RIA group for a couple of years, just showing up, listening to people and not figuring it out. And finally I read some books, and I went to a giant motivational seminar in Miami by One Each Grant Cardone. And I was just so, I had already bought the townhouse, and I was there outside of like the 10X Growth Conference at the stadium, like on the phone with the realtor trying to get the next deal. Although it's worlds apart from where I was and where Grant is, I still found his stuff to be very motivational, and it really got the wheels turning and got me taking action. I'm a huge advocate of taking action and getting some stuff done. Just for example, in our own personal lives, just after you guys met, after you and Katrina met, we had this whole pandemic kickoff. And,
that's true, yes.
We still did some traveling. Obviously, we were careful, but we still did some traveling. We still did some deals, and we had a wedding. We got married. I bought a home, our primary residence. We bought a home. So we kept taking action during that whole thing, and I think we sold quite a few deals.
Properties, yeah.
We bought 2 larger properties. We did our first 1031 exchange. Yeah.
And I think to what you said, action comes with setting goals. We are so big on setting goals. Every year, religiously, we are setting goals. And this year, I actually started a local group for setting goals. So we're going to teach folks how to set actionable goals, right? A lot of folks come to me and they're like, oh, I want to be in real estate, but what exactly do you want to do in real estate? Do you want to be a realtor? Do you want to be a property manager? Do you want to be a syndicator? There's so many options. Like you have to be very specific what you want and what are the specific action you want to take to get there, right? You want all those things, but until you put the actionable items underneath it, it's just a dream.
It's 80% mindset, which is why I think we spend so much time on getting motivated and fired up. And you captured it perfectly, Pete. When you got home from that conference, you were fired up and you're like, let's go do another deal. But the 20% of what to do and how to do it cannot be ignored, because if you don't know what to do, you could be as fired up as you want to be, but you're still not sure where to turn to take action. Right. And I like to say it's like when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you've never thought about that stuff before, that stuff is mind-blowing for you. For me, I was exposed to that concept a little bit earlier. So by the time I had read the book, I was like, and yay, this is great. Passive income, real estate. I love it. Right? Now what? And so I was very frustrated with the now what part of that book. And then I'd hear everybody talking about how great it was. And, oh, it really changed my life. I'm like, how did it change your life? And so, well, I never thought about things like this before. I'm like, and then what? And then what did you do? And so the 20% of how to do it, I think is really vital, because if you feel like you know what to do, you feel like you know how to do it, you feel like you know who to go to, then the confidence and the mindset actually increases. So they feed into one another. And so that first step of taking action with the condo, the townhouses, you talk about how they're small deals, but at the same time, you learned the pattern. Have a goal, learn about it, and then at a certain point, You just have to take the leap. You can't just keep learning about it. So I'd love to hear about the transition that you made from those first deals over to where you are currently, because it was another huge leap of faith to go from your first couple of small residential deals, not sure how to scale this, over into what you're doing now. So I'd love to have you take us on that journey, how you transitioned into this basically anti 9-to-5 entrepreneur investor business that you have running.
Full disclosure, Katrina has stepped away from corporate about a year and a half now. I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to be a good quitter. I had retired from the military and I got a great job in corporate and been holding down that, but it's on the list of goals this year. So I'm glad you spoke about goals. We used together this year a great book that I'll put out there. It's a long gone mentor of Tony Robbins, actually. So everybody heard about Tony Robbins. Not everybody heard about Jim Rohn, but a lot of people have. And we have Jim Rohn's book. You have to buy it used. They're not publishing it anymore, but I usually have it with arm's reach. But it's 7 Steps to Wealth and Happiness, and it guides you through the goal-making process. I have been using it for 3 years now, and this is the first year we joined together and used it, and it's really awesome. Some of our goals for this year, as we move from small multifamily, where own and manage just under 50 units in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We're on syndications as an LP partner in just over 1,000 units, mostly in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Albuquerque. And we've been growing that part of it. And that's where our interest for syndication and realizing this is possible for us, that we can help other investors. And Katrina's done a great job putting some content together that we'll talk about after. But we're really passionate about helping other people, helping people become a passive investor, and looking for that 200 assets under management this year is a big goal of ours, somewhere in the Southeast. I will actually be traveling to Kentucky next week, where I have some contacts. I'll be meeting some in person for the first time and visiting at least 2 to 3 deals that could be a possibility. Best things about Katrina stepping away from corporate is that she can be considered a full-time real estate professional, and we get such great tax advantages, even so much so that even though I'm working my W-2 job, we are on track to have our first zero tax year. That's right, zero taxes, because real estate is awesome.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because my husband and I, when he was in the W-2, were in the same position. When I became a real estate professional, as on my taxes, that I spent 750 hours a year, and that I was managing the source of that passive income, just following all my CPA's directions on how to do it right. It actually used our passive losses. We're able to then go against his active income. And normally you can't do that. Normally you get $25,000 a year top, and you just have to split that and carry it forward year after year, because that's the maximum. I don't have a maximum of how many losses I can take on my taxes. You don't either. And now your husband's active income also gets to take unlimited losses each year. And so we've had a 0 year. We had a year where we got back, despite our best efforts to keep it at 0, we actually got back a tax refund that was so big that we used it to go buy a new house, like a new down payment on a house. And so the tax benefits cannot be understated. It was basically a free house that we rented out, and we're just making money off of it. And so I
think in the conversation around this, though, it's really important to point out that housing is critical importance in short supply in the United States. And I think it's wonderful that our government incentivizes home ownership, where we provide an excellent, safe, clean place for people to live and for tenants to have a home. That's really what's being incentivized here. And as multifamily investors, we get to take advantage of that.
That is one of the advantages that sometimes I don't think we talk about enough. I used to live in a former Soviet bloc country, and the socialized housing, the communist housing, it's a very different model that we use in the United States for our housing. And Katrina, you know much more about this than I do. That when I came home and I realized, like, that was in my 20s, realizing, oh, we like privatized housing in this country. And as I learned about real estate over the ensuing years, like, that is highly incentivized to keep that public subsidy, but still privatized housing, because that's the model that we've chosen to use in this country. And that's where those tax benefits come from, is to incentivize us to provide housing. Absolutely. That was a turning point in my realization coming home from Eastern Europe and realizing this is a very different housing situation over here.
No, we definitely want to make sure we provide a great habitat for our folks. Every time we meet a new tenant, we say, we want you to treat this as your home. And we have a great set of tenants. They all super friendly. A lot of them actually send us Christmas cards and share vegetables from their garden. So we have a great landlord-tenant relationship with them. But also to mention that our real estate income is actually gets treated at a different tax bracket than due income.
Passive income.
Passive income. So there's also benefit there.
There are so many tax benefits to providing people clean, safe housing that they can be proud to call home. Benefits of taxes, benefits of relationships, benefits of the community serving one another. Thank you for bringing that up. It was something that I think now that my husband's no longer working, I forgot about. But if you are a real estate professional and you are married to a W-2 employee, look into those tax benefits, because that is as important as the income, the cash flow that flows off the property. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Definitely worth more research if you're in that situation. So what specific goals did you set maybe last year, a couple of years ago, that you were like, we're gonna make this transition? Is it because of who you were hanging around with and you saw what they were doing and you said, I want to do what they're doing? Or kind of walk me through that process of what you saw that made you think, I want to do this. And then how were you able to turn that dream and that goal into reality of buying commercial properties?
Absolutely. I'm going to turn this over to Katrina in a second. Let me just set this up. Absolutely. It's about those 5 people that you surround yourself with. Okay.
Jim Rohn.
And Katrina can talk about an exercise we did. I think it was almost 2 years ago, where we're on the beach on vacation and we went through this wheel exercise. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we basically identified folks that are supporting our journey and folks that we no longer feel like are supporting our journey. Pretty simple. And we decided that we want to spend our time consciously with folks that are fulfilling our life, that are happy for us, happy for our journey. And we realized that a lot of folks that are in our lives are our best friends. But not a lot of them, unfortunately, are into real estate, which we set a goal for 2 years prior that we want to enhance our life with more networking and folks that are in real estate, because that's the area that we want to expand in. That's
Absolutely.
what you meant, right?
That's what I meant,
Yeah. So it definitely helped to, as you said, everyone you meet on this journey, they expand your mind. And I think naturally we just grew into realizing that we can do more with our money, and we can free ourselves up from doing a lot of property management ourselves, because those calls in the middle of the night do come sometimes. No matter how much you train your tenants, pipes burst, Stuff happens. Syndication, investing in real estate through syndication is a little different from what I thought real estate investing. I always thought that you buy a house, you renovate it, you rent it. But real estate syndication allows you more freedom.
Absolutely.
And then leaving corporate a year and a half ago allowed me to go back to Russia for 1.5 months, which prior to, I could only go for 2 weeks. That's all I had as a corporate employee. And I was suffering internally because it's about 10-hour trip each way. And 2 weeks is really not enough with the time change, and most of my family is there. So 2 weeks is really nothing. So being there for 1.5 months with my family during holidays last year, it was amazing. And with everything going on there right now, I'm so glad we went. And I was able to actually take my husband there last year, which he really enjoyed. So.
Yeah, I was able to escape for 3 weeks, which is pretty good. And it's just so great. It's such a blessing to be able to be there and meet family. It's so awful what's happening over there right now. But to think that I may not have an opportunity to meet her grandfather again. He's in his 80s. It's sad to think about, but there's suffering on both sides there. But we're just so grateful that we were able to at least visit. I was able to visit for my first time. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without the freedom and the passive income. She was there for 6 weeks. Who does that?
Yeah. But I think to answer your question, the bottom line, what really made us turn around and realize that we can do differently in real estate is the freedom of time, right? The passive income that we can generate, where we're talking to you right now and the money is being generated. And I heard someone's interview and he said, what's your hourly rate? And your hourly rate is calculated by 24/7. How much money are you making 24/7? We're really interested in growing this number as we have been growing every year, but it's think about that. How much money are you making 24/7? So what is that number?
Now, I'm interested in the dynamic that you have between the two of you, because I always say that income needs to be split up into two buckets. The passive income bucket, which is more on the investing side of things. It's more on finding great teams and partnerships and investing with products, properties, and people that you believe in. And the other side is how to keep the lights on. You have to have some sort of active source of income because you've got to buy food and you've got to buy gas. And so for us, for many years, what worked well was for me to be a full-time investor, basically give up my entrepreneurial, like my photography business and those, and really focus full-time on real estate. And we never pulled any money out of the business. We never withdrew anything. It was all 100% was either expenses or reinvested back into the business. And so I didn't have to live off of what I was bringing in at all. I used to work so my kids could take piano lessons and we could go on a vacation. But my husband got to the point, he's, I will cover all of that. I will cover the vacations, all of that. I just reinvest 100% of what's in your business. And so when he lost his job in November of 2022, I remember thinking, oh, I got to live on this. I got to pull some money out of the business. And so he was doing that W-2 thing, which was a great compliment. So I'd love to hear about when you decided to basically do what I did, where you stepped away from working active income and how you kept your active income up, how you were able to keep your lights on. Because what I'm most interested in is the spectrum from one stream of income, or maybe two, because both of you are working, to the multiple streams of income that it takes in order to support a fully passive income lifestyle. And most of us are not 100% there. The ones who are 100% there tend to just hang out at the resort in Hawaii, and they're not doing podcasts, and they're not on social media, and they're maybe no longer even raising capital for deals. The most experienced people in the business tend to be like less involved. And so I'd love to hear where you are on that spectrum and how you balance the passive income dreams and goals with the need to have active income to keep the lights on.
So me leaving corporate was a really tough decision because, as I mentioned, I always climbed the corporate ladder. I'm so used to 9 to 5. I got my master's degree to be in the corporate, right? So why did I do all this work to leave it for nothing? But to me, it was all about the skills that I've acquired throughout my journey in corporate helped me to actually make that step. And now, being in real estate, being full-time in real estate, I use my finance degree. I use my bachelor's degree in business administration. I use every skill I've acquired through my lifetime, I'm actually applying right now. So this was my journey to where we are now. And
I just wanted to add, so Katrina also had obviously my support, but a giant push, because as everybody that's listening can relate to, during COVID, we're working from home and we're in home offices. And I have a very passive type of job where I'm kind of like the Maytag repairman. If there's a problem and I get a call, the company is losing money that I work for. I work in risk management. So Katrina would come out in the morning and be like, hey, you working today? Yeah, I'm working. Leave me alone. I get the news channel on. The next day she'd come by, I'd have a different color laptop. She wouldn't notice. Hey, are you working today? I'm like, no, I'm not working. Leave me alone. So that's my job. In the meantime, she's over here in the office, and I can hear her pouring her heart and soul out to try to bring, 12 computer IT guys together on a project, developing an app, day after day, just pouring her soul out and really not getting the appreciation that she deserved. And we had the conversation a few times, but I was like, babe, why don't you just take even a quarter of that energy and pour it into our business? We already had some property management going on, some real estate holdings. I said, take a quarter of that energy, put it in business for us, and leave that behind. And I think that message sunk in.
Yeah, without his support, I would not be able to do that. I definitely 100% sure about that. But regarding the income, as you said, he does have a corporate job, so income is coming from there. So we were okay with that. And then what happened is that because I was I was self-employed rather. It's a different category. Although it did feel like I was unemployed for a little while. It was very uncomfortable at first. I ended up putting all my energy into growing our portfolio. So over that last year, we pretty much doubled what we own and operate because I was able to dedicate my full time to it. So I was doing showings, I was doing screenings of the candidates' repairs. We actually secured an awesome handyman that's our go-to for everything that's happened on the property. So we've established great network for support of our current portfolio that we manage ourselves. So it's been a tremendous growing personally, financially. And I think with everyone who is looking to leave their full-time job, a corporate job, I would suggest if you do have your bases covered financially, whether it's coming from real estate or whatever it is, just do it, because you will find a way to bridge that gap financially, because you'll be more motivated, and that will be your push to make more money, because you need to make it, and you'll find a way. If you're creative, if you're out of the box thinker, you'll find a way.
I, for one, definitely appreciate that piece of advice, because I need to hear it myself right now, because it's like we're taking the slow motion leap right now from the W-2 life over into the passive income life. And it's like when you're playing a video game and Mario is jumping over the chasm and you're not quite sure if he can make it. And sometimes he doesn't. And I'm at the end, like imagining hanging on with my fingertips. I think that lowering your expenses is a huge part of preparing and being able to do that leap. So for example, when you gave up your income, it wasn't immediately replaced. You had to survive on what one spouse was making. And nobody wants to hear that part of it. They all want to hear how we're saving up for our private jet and we spent 6 weeks in Russia. And sometimes it's about the sacrifices, and that gives a scarcity mindset. And there's almost like a fear of a scarcity mindset in this industry. But I don't look at it as scarcity. I look at it as an investment. I have cut down my expenses so that I can get more time to invest in my business. So I would love to hear about making that transition and what your portfolio looks like now, however much you feel comfortable sharing, but just saying, what is it that we are doing right now? What's your portfolio look like right now? And how were you able to span that gap? And you have another gap when you both leave the W-2. What are your plans and goals in order to get to that point where you're both left? And what does your portfolio look like now and then in that future?
I'd just like to mention that I have a secret weapon. You already heard that she has an MBA in finance, right? And you also heard that she's Russian. So she's a great cook. She's exceptionally frugal. And that's awesome.
Let's not forget the beautiful part. If you're watching the video podcast, the stereotype definitely holds true in this case.
It's helpful. It's helpful for sure. But I don't know. I wish we had a super struggle story with it. I think we're much more of the abundance mindset. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe my original goal is we both had our own portfolios. But when I started to build mine, my goal was to be able to step away from corporate and be able to do that in a few years. That had been one of my goals. I had no idea I was going to meet Katrina. So I already had that established. I was just not stepping away from corporate because I enjoy what I do. And that enabled us for her to be able to step away from corporate. So she was a step away, but it was something that I had started years before. So I would just recommend to people that want to do it, try to build, if you're going to build small multifamily, try to build it on the side around your 9 to 5, and it builds up quick. It's not overnight, but it's 5 years makes a huge difference,
And when I left the corporate, actually, even up until now, we don't take any distributions from the business to cover our personal expenses. They all are coming from his salary for now. All the money that our business generated, we're putting into either new business, syndication, whatever it is. So all the money are going into growth right now because we're still in that state of growth.
That's where we started doing a lot of the LP stuff. It's not so great here in the Northeast. It's really tough to find a good deal. Yeah. Investing as an LP has been awesome.
But it's nice to have real estate generating money. So money generating money, right? It's not us doing the extra work. We're not taking the time away from each other or whatever we're doing. It's money generating money, and we're not investing our time into making more money. That's what I like. We're not trading.
Not too much.
How do you say it? Trading time for money?
Yes. Yeah.
Trading time for money. Every time we start something new, he's like, "Are you trading time for money?" I'm like, "Yes, but this is my passion, so I'm okay with that. If I'm volunteering, I'm trading time for money, but it's a conscious decision versus having to do something." So we definitely became more conscious about how we spend our precious seconds of our lives, because life is precious and you don't know when it's going to end. So don't want to regret everything I'm doing today. If today's my last day.
Yeah. Sometimes we get so caught up in working for a goal that we forget that the time right now working for the goal is actually fun. Like, this is the fun part, because as soon as you reach the goal, like I said, my husband left his job, or he was kindly asked to leave his job. Something my boss said really just motivated me to go out and start my own business. And like, what did your boss say? And he said, you're fired.
Oh.
So he was laid off, and the decision was made for us. Our dirty little secret is he was planning on quitting at the end of January anyway, and they just kind of moved the timeline up on us. But that readiness to say, hey, we're ready to make this leap, and we're ready to go down this path. And what you said, you will figure it out. You are a resourceful, creative person. You will figure it out. And sometimes the solution doesn't look like how the dream or the goal planned, but just keep plugging away. The knowledge that you've gained, that you've learned on the how to do this, and the network that you have on who can help you do it, that is vital. And it doesn't matter what happens to your finances. It absolutely will help you to rebuild if anything goes wrong. It helps you to scale, and it helps you to get your time back, because now you have a group of people that you can share the load with. So before you moving on from that, as you're delegating responsibilities in your portfolio, so what are you working on right now? What are you building right now? And where are you heading into the future?
So right now we're working very heavily on establishing our social media presence. So we are working with a marketing company to create branding, and we just launched a new website recently. But one thing that we're really proud about is, I feel like there's not a lot of education out there around passive investing. So we actually built a page on our website for new investors or folks that want to get into real estate syndication or just want to learn about syndications in general. So it's investor education page where I recorded some videos on a few topics. What is passive investing? What is syndication? What is preferred return? Benefits of syndication? Things like that. Things that are like a hub for where folks can come and learn and expand their knowledge on syndication. Things that I wish I knew when I first started, maybe, or options that I have around passive investing when I first started.
The other thing I would say that's been critical this year, that was a goal from last year that we took action on, is joining a mastermind and getting a coach. So we did that, and that's been awesome. It's been a great network. We went to an event in New Orleans recently. There were 40 other investors there, some capital raisers, some LP people, but just so many people doing more than us. It's good to be in that room when you are in your little RIA. There's a lot of people that are brand new, and a lot of people that are thinking about the next duplex, but nobody's thinking about the next 250 unit apartment building complex. It's good to raise the bar. We're looking forward to doing that, and we reinvested income from the business this year to cover that cost.
One of my business partners locally recently purchased our local RIA, and I'm super excited to see where that goes, because getting into that larger commercial and just having a broader focus, I'm really excited about. So my investing club's actually going to be sponsoring the RIA events for the next little while we're still in town. So I really feel like the masterminds, whether it's through a great RIA or a paid group or paid coaching, I don't usually recommend that people start there. And I love how you said that you've used that to vault yourself into your scaling, but sometimes people start there and then they still don't take any action. It's really easy.
Yeah.
It feels hard to write that big check, but it's actually easier than doing something.
Like having a gym membership, you have one, but if you don't use it, you're not going to get any strength.
Yeah, you went in, you hired the personal trainer, you took the gym tour, you signed all the paperwork, and then you go back and poke at things, and then you stop going. And I think that's the lure a lot of times of coaches and masterminds and mentorship groups and things like that, because it does definitely turn into that situation. And so if you're the kind of person who's like, hey, I can show up here pretty consistently, but I need some help, that's when you know you're ready to hire a coach or a trainer or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Because you're there and you're making it work. And so I love that's part of your scaling in your future. Some people did start there. I do know plenty of people who got started in a group like that. I just think that it's not a necessary part of it, because it's kind of like they would have found a way anyway. So I also love the education that you have going on and unpack that accessibility, because in our world, in our network, we all have education. We all have a free ebook, or we all have a YouTube channel, or we have and so to me, it feels, it's everywhere, and everybody is competing in the same space and raising capital from investors and educating investors. But I don't realize until I get out in the general public that people don't know where to find this information. They don't know they don't know where it is, they don't know how to get it, and they don't know how to apply it once they do find it. So making it more accessible and putting a face with it for someone they can call and say, hey, Katrina, I was on your website. I watched your YouTube video. I thought it was great. Talk to me, walk me through this process and help me figure out how to get into my first investment. I've noticed that people who are very experienced at this and they've been doing a lot of syndications as passive investors, they tend to be much more decisive, and they just call you up and they're like, hey, I want to put 50 grand or 100 grand in your next deal. And you're like, sweet, right? But that's definitely
regular. That's
it's not a regular thing.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. We spend a lot more time educating people who are like, tell me how to do this. And it's probably because we're a couple of steps ahead of them. We've been doing this a while, but we haven't been doing this for 50 years. We're not in the gray-haired good old boys club where we can just go down to the club and raise $1 zillion for our next deal. So the educational component and making that accessible to people is vital. And it's easy to lose sight of that because you see all of our colleagues doing it. But you need to do it. Your investors need you to do it because you're the one that they have connected with and that they want information from.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think for us, so I had my former boss reach out to me the other day, and he was like, Katrina, I saw you in real estate, da da da. And he thought that the only part that he saw from my videos and content that I was a realtor. But I am a realtor, but I'm more of a syndicator and property manager, what you call it, not so much. I am a realtor as well, but he needed a realtor. He took that part, and then he was looking for a property, but he's also, I talked to him about real estate syndication part of it, and he's like, oh, I didn't know about this. I don't understand. So I had to explain it to him. And I feel like no matter how much content you put out there still will be folks that don't understand it. So as much as you can put the content out there, put it. I think there's never enough content about the message that you're trying to get across. People will always wonder. So the more educational content, the better. And I also wanted to touch upon the aspect that you mentioned earlier. I think part of my success has always been working with someone that can keep me accountable for things that I say I'm going to do. We've been a lot more driven since we joined the mastermind because we are working with a coach who is very energetically charged, and he pushes us to our limits. He said, you guys have to have a website, you have to have your brand name, you have to have a whole list of things that we need to do. And he gave us a deadline, right? So that makes, and then he would check on us. He would be like, where are you guys with that stuff? Just for the accountability, it's worth the money.
But even in that group, right? So there's some people that bought the gym membership and they didn't take that action, right? We still did it.
That's what it boils down to. Nobody can lift the bar for you. Nobody can swing the bat for you. Great coaching can make you a great player, but you've got to put in the work. A recent interview I had where he was a college football athlete, and he was talking about how people aren't seeing the behind the scenes where you're running stadium stairs at 5 o'clock in the morning and throwing up. And he had a coach out there, and he's at the end of it, some of the guys quit because the dream of being on this championship team was not enough to carry them through the hard parts. And there are things that I've quit because I'm like, I'm like not actually cut out for this. I don't like it. It's making me unhappy. And so finding your niche within the world, like having that passive income dream and having that lifestyle design that you are very committed to, you got to find a way. Sometimes the first couple of paths aren't really working and you got to switch gears a little bit. But quitting for me is where there's no option. Especially not now that my husband's left his job. It's like, all right, like you said, we'll figure it out. We just got to make it work. You don't always have to know 100% of what's going on. I say 50 to 80%, then leap, because the last 20-ish%, you can only learn by doing. You have to do it. The 80-20 rule definitely comes into play here. So it's awesome that that's what you have been working on. So tell us where to find you. Where is your website with this education, and how can people reach out to you?
So it's pretty easy to remember. So our last names are Turner. So the name of our company is Capital Turners with S at the end. So it's www.capitalturners.com.
That
absolutely, yeah. For the brave ones out there, we'll put out our company phone number. It's 401-249-1616. And you can text us or give us a call if something we said in this interview connected with you and you have some questions.
And we definitely want you to reach out after the show. We do the show for education, for entertainment, but at the bottom of the reason why we put this content out is because we want to connect with you. We want to be in your network and we want you to be in our network. So please don't be shy or hesitate about reaching out after the show is over. So the last question that I ask every guest is tell me about a passive income adventure that really inspires you right now, whether it's a trip or a business, something you're working on right now, or a future bucket list item. What is something that you are excited about that you could not do without the passive income lifestyle?
Oh, we're using the passive income that we're receiving to build on the business. And part of that is searching for deals. We need to get some assets under management. It's on our goal list to get at least 200, 250 assets under management this year. And as I alluded to earlier, I'll be taking a trip next week to Lexington, Kentucky, meeting up with a broker and some property managers. I'm seeing at least 3 properties while I'm there. I've already started to underwrite them here, but the way the market is right now, you can go see these properties before you submit your LOI. There's not a lot of people knocking down the door. So I'm doing that, and that's part of the passive income is supporting that. So
we also are planning a trip to Italy.
Fun stuff.
Yes, the fun stuff. So we're really excited about that, and we really hope that we find a way to set up our system so we can be there without any disruption. So that's our goal for that. So no property management calls or anything else. So if we can do that, I think we'll be successful.
And I love that you are already limited partners in several deals, because that does provide some distributions. And really, it's after you invest, after you push wire, it's pretty much zero work. You want to look at the reports and stay up to date on what's going on, but there's really no management at all. And so you're able to enjoy both ends of that spectrum, where you have your active income through your W-2, you have your active income through your entrepreneurial activities, you have your passive income through your limited partnerships, and you're just going to keep continuing to build that. So the progress that you have shared with us has been amazing, and it's really been in a fairly short period of time. Like you said, 5 years makes all the difference when you're really concerted effort. When you're putting a concerted effort onto investing your money from whatever source you get it from, whether it's a syndication business or because you have a job or you're a high paid professional, just invest the money. Just live on less than you make, invest as much as you can, and 3 to 5 years will change your life. It did for us. It's doing that for you right now. And it can definitely do it for the listeners out there. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having us, Emma.
Thank you. Great questions.
Again, thank you so much for sharing your updates. It's really inspiring. And if I encourage people to reach out, you have some great resources with your coaches, with your groups, with your investment opportunities. And we would love to hear from you after the show. So I appreciate you coming with us along for the ride, passive income investors. And we wish you great luck on your next adventure. And we'll see you all next time.